Hello, welcome back to another video lesson in astrology. In this video, we're going to talk about Mars in the 8th house. To use this information, you require two charts. The first one is, of course, the basic chart, the Rasi chart, and the next one is the Bhava chart. From the Rasi chart, you get to know whether Mars is in its own sign or exalted, deep exaltation, which is Capricorn 28 degrees, or deep debilitation, which is 28 degrees Cancer. Whether Mars is in its Mula Trikona, which is the first 12 degrees of Aries. Whether Mars occupies the sign of its friends, and the friends of Mars are the Moon, Jupiter, and the Sun. And whether Mars occupies the sign of its enemy, Mercury. There are two signs for Mercury, and that is Mars in Gemini or Mars in Virgo. Mars is not comfortable being in these two signs because Mars is the red planet and it hates to be in the green. And the green signs are Gemini and Virgo. Also, if you want to know whether Mars is with malefics like Rahu or Ketu or Saturn, all this is to be known only from the Rasi chart. Even aspects, conjunctions, everything is to be known only from the Rasi chart. Then what is the Bhava chart or the Chalit chart to be used for? The Bhava chart or the Chalit chart is just used to know which house Mars is in. That's it. Beyond that, there is no other use of the Bhava chart. I hope I have made this very clear, and so let's move on to the green board. So now we are back to the green board, and in this example you see the ascendant in Aries, and then Mars is in the 8th house. But this is not just the only possibility. You could have Mars in the 8th in 12 different ways, and that would actually alter the results. Whereas when you buy any book from the bookstore and you start to refer about what might happen if Mars is in the 8th house, you might be told a certain result, but the author does not take care of Mars being in different rashis, different zodiac signs, or if Mars is influenced by other planets. So for example, this Mars is in the 8th house, and this Mars is okay because Mars is in its own sign. Usually planets in its own sign are very, basically happy. And you could have another way, like you might have it here, and then Mars here. So let's renumber the houses. So now you have it, Mithuna Lagna and Mars in the 8th house. Now this Mars is quite different because Mars is exalted. Whenever a planet is exalted, it is expected to be in a better mood. It has less inclination to do bad. But take the other condition, that if the ascendant is over here, and which is Sagittarius or Dhanur Lagna, and then Mars is over here. So let's renumber the houses. So here we have it. So now Mars is in the 8th. But this Mars is quite different because Mars is debilitated in the 8th. And whatever sage Bhrigu has spoken about of the effect of Mars being in the 8th house, whatever negative that has been spoken about is more likely to happen in the person's life if Mars is in such a position. So this is not the only point, because sometimes you have to also look at who are with Mars. So for example, Rahu, another malefic, joins the 8th house, then this could be extremely bad. But you must also not forget that Jupiter's presence or aspect can alter these things to a great extent. For example, if Jupiter is very close to Mars, in which case Jupiter also will be trying its best to positively influence Mars, and that's because Jupiter is the guide, the god and the divine, and an astrologer. So sometimes it means that the person will find a way to solve the problem that is caused by Mars being in the 8th house. Sometimes Jupiter might be here, in which case Jupiter's 5th house aspect falls on Mars, and or maybe Jupiter is here and Jupiter's 9th house aspect falls on Mars, and then there would be a lot of changes. But these are the times that astrology really gets a little difficult. Could be confusing, but with practice you'll you'll be in a better position to understand the various permutation combinations of planets. So that's the reason why I always insist that you just can't read a book and try to figure all this out by just referring Mars in the 8th, or go to internet websites and type Mars in the 8th, the effects, because the author might not have considered all these possibilities. But there is always some possibilities, regardless of any condition, which means no conditions apply. And these are going to be discussed in this video. Sage Bhrigu in Bhrigu Sutra says, if Mars is in the 8th house, the person can be a Netra Rogi. Now, Netra Rogi, Netra Sthana has got actually nothing to do with the 8th house, but the second house is the house of the eyes. This is the second house, this is the first house, this is the second. The Netra Sthana is the second house, and Mars looks at the second house. And while Mars is already in the 8th house. Now, 8th house could mean sudden, unexpected problems. The key word for 8th house is unexpected. And so surgery comes under this, or sudden things that happen in our life. And, a retina damage does, tear or a retina damage does not, usually happens all on a sudden. And this is possible for Mars being in the 8th house. Ardhayu. Ardha is actually half, not short life, though the translator says it is, he will not be long lived. Actually, the exact, the meaning of Ardhayu is half life. And considering 120 as the full span of life according to Vimshotri Dasha, you could say maybe 60 years. And Pitrarishta, Arishta, the translator in Bhrigu Sutra, Dr G S Kapoor, translated this as father will die early in the native's life. And but actually, when I referred to Sanskrit spoken.de, I found that Arishta is not actually death. It just means there is some problem. Could indicate also fatal and possibility of death also, but not all the time. So these are the problems in associated with astrology, that when you are dependent so much on the translation, it all depends on who is the translator. So it's better to always keep an eye on the Sanskrit text, and then maybe buy a Sanskrit dictionary and then find out what are the possibilities. Mutra Krich Rog. Mutra Krich Rog is actually urinary related and urinary infections. The 8th house is actually the lower stomach, the excretion, the excretory points, the sexual organs, and Mars in the 8th definitely has something to do with this, because the burning sensation that one has when you have one has a urinary infection is definitely something to do with Mars, because Mars is like fire and burning sensations. So Mars in the 8th, because it is between the navel and the hip, and all that. So possibly there might be the intervention, or surgical interventions might be necessary for Mars being in the 8th house. Alpa Putravan, there will be reduction of the number of children. He doesn't. Sage Bhrigu does not say how many number of children. In fact, most of the textbooks of ancient origin does not say the number of children. And attempts have been made to find out how many children a person will have from the horoscope, but looks very illogical, because nowadays most people have only 2 children, and there are, whereas 100 years back or even 1000 years back in India, most families had at least 5 to 10 children. He will have few children but suffer from rheumatism. For this, the Sanskrit word is Vata Shula Dirogaha. Vata is actually the pain. Shula means sudden pain coming in. Usually it comes around the spine, the spinal lower spine area. A shula is actually something to do with like spear, as though a spear is being inserted. Sudden pain. Dara Sukha Yutha. But on the contrary, despite all this, he says happy marriage. It's surprising, because Mars in the 8th is usually supposed to mean Kuja dosha or Mangal dosha. Shubhayute Deharogyam. if Mars is in conjunction with benefic. So if Mars is in conjunction with benefic, like Jupiter is here, um, Mars is in conjunction with the benefic, the native will enjoy good health and be long lived. So these are the things that you'll have to look out for. On the other hand, if Mars is in the house of a malefic or is associated with a malefic, let's take this example of Mars being in the 8th house but also afflicted by Rahu and occupies the sign of Saturn. So for this, my sage Bhrigu says, if Mars is in the house of a malefic or is associated with a malefic, the native will suffer from rheumatism. Again, repeats the same things, consumption, or from trouble from urinary troubles. Kshayadi roga actually could mean tuberculosis or cancer or those kind of things that actually leads to loss of weight. Then Madhyayuha. In any case, he seems to be speaking repeatedly about reduction in lifespan, but then he puts a condition that if the Lord of the 8th is powerful, the native will have full longevity. For example, you know that Saturn rules this house. And let's say Saturn is in the 4th, which is a Kendra, and gives rise to a Pancha Mahapurusha Yoga, because Saturn is exalted in the 4th. So you get another situation here that the Lord of the 8th is extremely strong. Maybe once you check out the Shadbala, you find that Saturn is strong or extremely strong. Maybe in Vimshopaka Bala also it is very strong. So if all this happens, then you don't have to worry so much about the reduction in the longevity. On the other hand, Bhrigu says the native will have full lifespan. Please let me have your feedback based on your experiences with relatives' horoscope or client's horoscope with regard to Mars being in the 8th house, and what are the kind of results that you have seen. So please do share these views, and so let's learn astrology together. We have come to the end of this video. In case you have any doubts, please type them out in the comment section, and whenever I find the time, I'll answer them for you. And see you soon in my next video.